Now we come to the most misunderstood activity, which is subduing. It is also called subjugating or wrathful activity. The color is black or dark blue, and you can think of the color of smoke cloud or night sky, of real depths. Okay, and it is misunderstood because it does not mean harming anybody out of anger. It does not mean being angry at others, and even if you've realized who you are, if you think that you're enlightened and all of that, doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that you can't do that. Okay, it's about forceful and compassionate destruction of forces that cannot be tamed through, let's say, peaceful means, which can't be tamed through calm means, pacifying activities, right? Destroying your ignorance, ego clinging, severing negative attachments that you have, whether it's ghost attachments around you or maybe attachments that you have with other people, all of that, which binds you to suffering. You know? This activity also protects you from harm, as I said. So it removes negative attachments to you, within and without. It's also about cutting through obstacles which threaten your spiritual progress, even if it might be painful for you, because that is necessary. Think of it as a surgery. If a limb becomes dangerous, a compassionate doctor, he doesn't hesitate to amputate that limb, cut that limb. That cutting is done out of love to protect the patient, not out of cruelty. And I also believe that it is for basically purifying the karma. So if you're aware, then that Milarepa, so many of Indian saints, so many Hindu saints also, um, and even if you're aware of Tilopa and Naropa, no, how were they treated by their gurus? Tilopa hit Naropa with a sandal, and that is what led to enlightenment for Naropa. Naropa and Milarepa, both of them, and they were asked to do many hard tasks by their gurus. So they were beaten also. They were asked to, yeah, you can read about it all over internet. They were very tough, extreme penances, but all of it was being done to purify their karmas and to clean their ego, to cleanse their ego. All those beatings and physically dangerous stuff that they were being asked to do. But this is very outward and external, and they were enlightened beings. Okay, we are talking about enlightened beings here again as born chain Buddha. You don't have to apply all of that into your life because we are in no position to do it. There's nothing else I can say, by the way. I really hope that people who are discerning are listening to this. Play stupid games and then win stupid prizes. So don't do that. This activity is never about directing your anger or hate or harm at people. If there's a terrorist in your country, the government might have to use this means, out of compassion for others. Why? To protect people. So you can understand what I'm saying. If you have any negative pattern, any like, let's say, anger, resentment, desire to win, or punish somebody, and you are using it to direct all of this anger, hate, etc. at other person, then it is negative karma, because this expression, this activity is always fierce. But it is protective compassion. It's a kind of parent, let's say, who pulls the child away from traffic. They know that the child will cry, or who gives the child a very bitter medicine. They know that the child will cry, but they still do it. Why? Because it is good for the child. They don't do it out of hate or malice. Okay, and if you are feeling very satisfied with any kind of pain or disruption that you've caused by subduing action, no, it's a warning sign. Don't do that. Don't do that. This activity, true subduing activity, it leaves the practitioner thinking, feeling the weight and the cost of their intervention. There's no pleasure, there's no victory in this. No? It's about, let's say, there are a couple of examples that you can think of. For example, if there's a surgeon who's removing a tumor, or a therapist, who's telling the client a painful truth which the client is not ready to see, a parent who's setting a boundary with a child, a nation that is defending itself against invasion, a person who's leaving an abusive relationship, a community that's standing up to injustice, all of that. No, um, let's say an intervention for someone who has addiction. It might be painful. All of this might be painful for someone, but it is necessary. Okay, a teacher who's, let's say, giving some tough love to a student, and if you've grown up in South Asia, you know how all of us get tough love from the parents. When I went to Scotland, I think the only culture shock, the only culture shock that I had was about how gentle the parents were with the kids. Chinese, Pakistani, Indian moms, they they will never understand that kind of gentleness that I'm talking about. We used to share a lot of memes, me and my friends. Anyway, so I was giving examples, right? Um, a judge who's passing a sentence. Let's say it's a death sentence, right? A fire break that is cut to stop a wildfire. All of these, they are subduing actions. Actions that are used to cut, to remove, to protect through force. When force is extremely important, you know, for enlightenment, to understand your nature again, to propagate dharma, to understand your dharma, to live your dharma. So next time when you recognize a destructive habit within yourself and decide to stop, that is subduing. When you face a peaceful, when you face a painful truth that you've been avoiding, no, your delusions, that is subduing. When you say no to something or someone that's harming you, when you cut ties with the toxic person, when you sit with difficult emotions instead of simply distracting yourself, when you confront your shadow, that is the point of this entire channel. When you meditate on impermanence, and feel your attachment loosen, that is subduing. When you forgive yourself, when you let go of your shame, all of this, all of this pattern interruption, it is subduing. When a lady who is constantly been facing domestic violence decides to call in police, that's subduing. That's this wrathful activity. It's done out of compassion for oneself, for one's children, whoever. No, it's radical intervention. It's needed when all gentler approaches they fail. It's forcefulness. It's forcefulness. And it is required to break an addiction. It's required to leave an abusive situation. It's required to confront um, a long denied truth. Okay? And the shadow, as I shared before, it can become very harsh, very judgmental, very aggressive, angry. You use all your force when patience maybe could work better, when you could be more responsive and not reactive. So don't end up cutting everything that you can heal. When you end up cutting a lot of relationships, even when there was no need, and then in turn become isolated and later realize that you did wrong. All of that. Okay. Never mistake your cruelty for compassion. Cruelty is not compassion. Wrathful compassion is when you know that it is for mutual benefit. Okay, for the other person and also for yourself. Now we come to the deities. These are Black Tara, Mahakal, and Kali. When you need subduing activity, if you're stuck in patterns, as I said, or you want to cut through denial, if you're constantly chasing someone since years, but there's no progress in your relationship, maybe you need to cut that attachment. You need fierce protection. Call in Black Tara. So she has all weapons to destroy all enemies. Not people, but inner enemies, of course, of greed, hatred, ignorance. And then eventually, once the inner patterns change, inner patterns clear out, they'll also clear the external manifestations of it. You can also call on Mahakal, as I said. He dances on corpses, the corpses of ego, like Shiva in Hinduism. Then there's Kali, wrathful again, but very compassionate for her devotees, for her children. She cuts off heads of demons. No, these demons, which are always within ourselves, our poverty, our lack, lust, everything. All these demons, they represent our own negative patterns. So take their help. Now, before we move on, let's do the exercise again. Take a moment now. Take a deep breath in and out. Where in your life do you need subduing? Is there a habit that you need to break? Is there a truth that you need to face? That you know but you are not ready to face? Is there a boundary that you need to set? Is there something that you need to cut loose, maybe? Put your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. And simply say, may what needs to end, end. May what needs to be cut, be cut. May I have the courage to face what I've been avoiding. Amen. Amen. Amen.